The content of this video is drawn from the sources listed on screen.
There are two decisions in life that can make or break you: who you marry and what career you choose. These are deeply personal choices because they set the course of your future. And yet, the leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses stick their noses even into those decisions. Today, thousands of people carry the regret of having listened to them back when they were young. This is the second of two videos on the subject of education. In the first one, I showed you that David Splain's famous talk in Governing Body Update number 5 was nothing more than a recycled version of what the Watchtower had already published on November 1st, 1992. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll leave the link up here so you can get the full context. Back in that 1992 article, it said that no one should judge a Jehovah's Witness who decided to pursue higher education. Exactly the same thing David Splain said just a few weeks ago. In this video, I'm going to show you, using Watchtower's own publications, how the governing body has spent the last 40 years playing erratically with its flock's life decisions, loosening and tightening policies at will, always putting the Watchtower Corporation's interests first, even if that means crushing dreams, cutting off careers, and ruining the lives of thousands of their followers. Before we get started, if you're new here, let me tell you that the voice you're hearing has been generated with artificial intelligence. However, the content doesn't come from an automated system. It was written entirely by the creator of this channel. You can call me Nowachi. To understand this story, we need to focus on 3 turning points. The first is the article Education with a Purpose in the November 1st, 1992 issue of the Watchtower. The second is the article Parents, What Future Do You Want for Your Children? From the October 1st, 2005 issue of the Watchtower. And finally, the most recent turning point in August 2025, just a few weeks ago, with Governing Body Update number 5. ETs start with the first turning point. By the end of 1992, Frederick William Franz, whom we can call the Bachelor Franz, and not ironically, of course, wink wink, since he never married, and who was the 4th president of the Watchtower Society, was living out his final days. His life ended on December 22nd of that year. Franz was the last charismatic leader of Jehovah's Witnesses, the last authority figure connected to the founding eras of Russell and Rutherford, and I would add, the last one bold enough to put an actual date on the end of this system of things. As usually happens in these cases, Franz, by then aged and frail, could no longer participate in major decision-making. So with the November 1st, 1992 issue of the Watchtower, it looked like new winds of freedom were about to blow for Jehovah's Witnesses, winds that, as we'll see, didn't last very long. That article pointed out that in some countries, it was practically impossible to get a decent-paying job without higher education. It also stated that no one should criticize those who chose to pursue additional schooling. But at the same time, it made it very clear that this step should be taken with the goal of entering full-time service as an unpaid employee of the Watchtower. Sorry, my slip. I meant full-time service. And of course, it didn't miss the chance to warn young people about the so-called dangers, becoming materialistic, drug addicts, immoral, or atheists, because according to them, higher education led young people down all of those paths. Despite those final warnings in that article, many young witnesses decided to take the governing body at their word and went off to college. I was one of those young people myself, and it wasn't just the youth. Many witnesses who had cut short their studies years earlier, following the Society's advice, and were already parents, also decided to go back and pursue further education as much as their circumstances allowed. Over time, reports started reaching the Society that many witnesses were going to college, but not with the intention of staying in full-time service. Rather, simply to get better jobs and build their lives. But of course, the governing body wasn't about to allow such a sin, studying to get better jobs instead of working for free for the Watchtower. Oh, excuse me, for Jehovah. How could they tolerate such an abomination? Surely little Joey Rutherford and Bachelor Franz were rolling in their graves, or rather, up in heaven, as rulers alongside Christ, writhing like clams drenched in lime juice. And that brings us to our second turning point. On March 22nd, 2003, the big guy Milton Henschel passed away. He had succeeded Bachelor Franz as president of the Watchtower. Henschel had pushed through a series of major administrative changes at the very top of Jehovah's Witness leadership. For example, in October 2000, it was announced that the governing body would be separated from the legal entity known as the Watchtower. A few months later, Henschel stepped down as president of the corporation, although, of course, he remained one of the most influential members of the governing body. With his death in 2003, the door was left wide open for the hardliners to return to decision-making in the Watchtower. That's when we see Garrett Losh, a governing body member, of whom I personally suspect spent his entire school life sitting in the corner wearing a dunce cap, launch a campaign against higher education. His speech in Italian, where he attacks college education head-on, has become quite famous on the internet. All of this culminated in the publication of the article Parents, What Future Do You Want for Your Children? In the October 1st, 2005 issue of the Watchtower. And boy, do they know how to give pretty titles to such shameful articles. To begin with, the article is addressed to parents, not to the children themselves, as if the wishes of the children didn't matter. But as we'll see later, there was a rather sinister reason for this. But first, let's read some excerpts from that article. Paragraph 5. Some parents, however, are ambivalent in this regard. On the one hand, they would like to see their children make advancement in Jehovah's service, perhaps in time entering the full-time ministry. On the other hand, considering the economic and employment situation in the world today, they feel that it is important for young ones to get a good education first, so that they will have the necessary qualifications for a desirable job, or at least have something to fall back on if needed. To such parents, a good education often means higher education. Paragraph 8. Some parents work very hard and save so as to be able to send their children to institutions of higher learning when the time comes. Others are willing to go into debt for this purpose. The cost of such a decision, however, cannot be measured merely in dollars and cents. What is the cost of pursuing higher education today? Paragraph 10. The education may be practically free, but the price that the students pay is a life engrossed in advancing the present system. Though such a way of life is highly sought after in the world, is it what Christian parents want for their children? Paragraph 11. Then there is the environment. University and college campuses are notorious for bad behavior, drug and alcohol abuse, immorality, cheating, hazing, and the list goes on. Paragraph 12. In addition to the bad environment, there is the pressure of schoolwork and examinations. Naturally, students need to study and do their homework to pass the exams. Some may also need to hold at least a part-time job while going to school. All of this takes a great deal of their time and energy. What, then, will be left for spiritual activities? When pressures mount, what will be let go? Will kingdom interests still come first, or will they be put aside? And pay close attention here. This is the key part. Paragraph 17. Rather than choose academic subjects that are geared toward university education, parents and children need to consider courses that are useful in pursuing a theocratic career. Paragraph 18. Studies show that in many countries, there is an acute need, not for university graduates, but for people to work in the trades and services. USA Today reports that 70% of the workers in the coming decades will not need a four-year college degree, but rather an associate degree from a community college or some type of technical certificate. Many such institutions offer short courses in office skills, auto repair, computer repair, plumbing, hairdressing, and a host of other trades. Yes, you got that right. The article demonized higher education. Instead, it presented trades and technical studies as the ideal path for a Christian. But the dirtiest, most twisted move was yet to come: coercion. Despite the publication of that article, many witnesses continued with their university studies. After all, a lot of witnesses still have some common sense. It was obvious to the governing body that it wasn't practical to disfellowship or censure those who pursued higher education. Yes, psychological pressure was applied, but it depended heavily on the initiative of each elder. So how could they achieve a greater degree of coercion? That's when the society announced, through the circuit overseers, that elders and ministerial servants who enrolled in university studies, or who allowed their wife or children to do so, were putting themselves at risk of losing their position. Now do we understand why that Watchtower article was addressed to the parents, ignoring the opinions and wishes of the children? Later, this policy was cemented in the elders' textbook, Shepherd the Flock of God, with the following text: situations that may require a review of an appointed brother's qualifications. he or a member of his household pursues higher education. If an appointed brother, his wife, or his children pursue higher education, does his life pattern show that he puts kingdom interests first in his life? Does he teach his family members to put kingdom interests first? Does he respect what has been published by the faithful slave on the dangers of higher education? Do his speech and conduct reveal that he is a spiritual person? How is he viewed by the congregation? Why is he or his family pursuing higher learning? Do they have theocratic goals? Does the pursuit of higher education interfere with regular meeting attendance, meaningful participation in field service, or other theocratic activities? There's also a video circulating online that the organization used in elder schools. It shows a service committee, note, not a judicial committee, removing an elder who committed the horrible, disgusting sin of worrying about his daughter's future and allowing them to go to college. With this, the campaign against higher education reached an all-time high. Never before had this issue been made a cause for removal. And any reasonable person could ask, in what part of the Bible does it say that not going to college is a requirement for being an elder or a ministerial servant? That's exactly what I asked myself. It's clear that these wicked, hypocritical men who make up the governing body know no limits. They toy with their followers at their absolute whim. They love to quote Matthew 6 verse 33. Keep on, then, seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness. But for them, putting God's kingdom first really means putting the Watchtower's interests first. The corporation's interests always come first. Its workers are disposable and insignificant. What they need is free labor to print, to preach, to build kingdom halls and assembly halls, to produce videos, or to handle administrative tasks. And for that, they resort to any cheap, vulgar scheme. They don't care about crushing the dreams or expectations of their followers. I'd like to say they're wolves in sheep's clothing, but honestly, I think they're hyenas. With apologies to the hyenas. We've finally reached the post-pandemic stage, a stage in which, as I showed in the video linked above, the Watchtower is facing the lowest growth in the last 60 years, and that's according to their own numbers. How can they stop so many members from leaving? How can they make a religion attractive when it meddles in every aspect of your life, including what you choose to study? How can they shield themselves from the lawsuits raining down on them in more and more countries? The answer, by adapting to the modern world, not out of love for God, and certainly not out of genuine concern for their followers, who to them are little more than pawns, but out of sheer survival. And so we've seen a series of changes you already know about. They've abandoned the ridiculous prohibitions against beards for men and pants for women. They now allow brief greetings, just greetings, to disfellowshipped ones at Kingdom Hall meetings. They even allow toasts. And, as we've seen, they've gone back to their 1992 policy on higher education, as evidenced in their famous update number 5. These hyenas of the governing body, people without love or compassion. They know perfectly well that with every decision, they crush dreams and shape the lives of thousands of people. And still, they couldn't care less. The final lesson? Never let a multinational corporation decide for you on matters as personal as your education, your family, or your future, because to them, you simply don't matter. Let me ask you something. Do you want this content to reach more and more people who need it? It's very easy and it doesn't cost a thing. Just subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a like, and share this video with anyone you think it could help. Thank you for being part of this project. See you soon.